Welcome back. You watching The Fix, and of course our big hitter tonight is Gauteng Premier David Makhura. Premier, you were still completing for us what is going to happen to Mr. Hlongwa in the African National Congress.
Yeah, just proceeding from this point about rule of law and constitutionalism, and at times we think only of them when there's specific circumstances and forget about them in the next set of circumstances. One of the things we have learned is that if parties act arbitrarily as they deal with their members, they easily go to court, and parties end up with egg on their face. We have seen it very recently. The ANC would like to ensure that by the time it has concluded its own internal due processes, it satisfies itself that it has given its member, Brian Hlongwa, an opportunity to appear before the structures of the party and answer certain important questions, so that when on the one side is state institutions, on the other side is also internal processes of the party. I want to emphasize, we don't want a Delil situation. Very recently, it's important that parties themselves act with regard to their own internal processes. And that's the only thing I emphasize in the debate in the legislature, that all the parties do the same. They act with regard to their own internal due processes, and the law enforcement agencies must do their work and unencumbered by what the parties are doing. That's the main point I was making.
I get that, Peter. Of course, illegal land invasions have plagued the province for months now, and it looks as if the government is almost powerless to stop it. We ask what happens next, and of course, itching to get in is Peter Bruce, columnist for the Sunday Times. Peter, get right in.
Yeah, well, Premier, first of all, I just think you can't be too harsh with him. You know, he's one of the good guys.
Is he the nice guy?
I think his comments about the civil society's role in unwinding the corruption of the Guptas and that the period that we've been through was very generous and a strong point to make. But we'll watch a clip about land invasions in a moment, Premier. But yes, you have. You've said that you're going to go ahead now and expropriate land without compensation, using the Constitution.
Yes. Yes.
A lot of people are saying, okay, go do it. When will you do it? Have you identified land? Where is it? And do you have a plan for the land once you've expropriated it?
Yes, thank you, Bruce, for the question on land. And I think question on integrity, ethics and corruption is very important for the governance of our country. Sure. And yet questions of equity, inclusion, and ensuring that everybody has got the means to support their lives in our democracy are also important. And I deal with the land question from that standpoint, that we need to do everything that we build a country in which there's no single citizen who is left out. Yeah. So let's deal with the rapid land release program that the provincial government is undertaking together with the municipalities. Yes, firstly we have identified all land parcels owned by state-owned entities, state-owned land, municipalities, provincial government, national government departments, SOEs, state-owned enterprises, in our province, including what the plans are on that land, and there are significant land parcels where there are no plans. We have also identified buildings, state-owned buildings, where we can do much more. Some of the schools in the townships are empty, and we have business people, township entrepreneurs who come to us to say, look, I'm doing this now in my house. Only if I was to get a bigger piece of land or bigger property, I could do much more and employ more people.
The question would be, Premier, when do you start? When will it actually happen?
So I've said to you that, okay, not to you, Peter, but I explained sure, even on Friday during my budget vote, that I've established a team, that 3 MECs and 3 mayors. They've been meeting together with a technical capacity of government officials, including national government officials, who have put this plan, the rapid land release plan. It's already in place. As I say, we have identified the different land parcels owned by the state, including what you can do on some land parcels and what you can't. That team now is busy with identifying land privately, what we call privately owned land that's lying fallow. I have the time when there's these illegal land invasions. It's people who have identified that this land has been adhered, but sometimes some of the owners we know are absentee landlords. So we're making that the second phase. But the first phase is to deal with the land and the property that is in our hands and how we want to release that to people who want to build houses for themselves, but also to business people, local business people who think they can do much more when they have access to either land or the land, the properties that are currently underutilized, government properties.
Talking about business people, Premier, let me come in here. We saw very recently Soweto homeowners engaging in street fights with shack dwellers, residents of informal settlements who came and set up, shacks on land in their areas, and they were worried about the property prices of their homes. Now, many of these residents were recently given title deeds by Herman Mashaba, the DA mayor of the city. Others have owned their land. Now, how do you deal with the aspiring middle class who's concerned about property values and the homeless who are coming from all other places in South Africa to Gauteng, as you said initially, looking for economic opportunities?
Yes. I think just so in the rapid land release plan that Bruce we're talking about, so one of the important things is to identify what bulk infrastructure already exists on a particular piece of land or needs to be put in place. We don't want to informalize development. So one of the important things that having identified these land parcels, we want to put for human settlement, for those who want to build for themselves. The problem of the illegal land invasion is precisely that point. And there isn't anyone who's got property or houses and suddenly there's an illegal land invasion before them. Firstly, an illegal land invasion informalizes development, and that's why people would be worried about that. But which is what we want to do with our program, when we put bulk infrastructure there, the second thing we do, we want designs, proper development. So those who are going to build houses for themselves we want to encourage that people need to put up proper houses for themselves. There's nothing unusual in many countries where they are not building large scale in the way we do houses for people. There's always planning in that kind of way. So people would know. So I want to assure those who own houses, who have, most of them, these are bonded houses, bank finance houses, that the rapid land release program is not going to threaten
the value of
their properties, because we are putting up infrastructure. We want proper development in these areas, but some of this land also we want it to be located in the urban centers, not in the periphery of our province, where we have always said development black people put on the periphery of our province. That's why this land, the investment on that land from a government point of view with regard to bulk infrastructure is something we're going to do as a matter of fact.
Sure. The wider question, though, is you talk about doing this in two phases. So there's rapid release of state-owned property now. But you have to get to the point where you test the Constitution when you expropriate a private landowner's property. Why are you delaying that?
I'm glad Peter Bruce is asking the question the other way around. Why are you delaying that? Well, others are asking, why are you rushing?
But Premier, with respect, the whole point about bringing these test cases was recently emphasized at the ANC's own land summit that it held, following the decision in Parliament to support the EFF's nomination, or rather position around the review. Exactly. So you've had 23 years or so to think about this. There is an urgency to bring these test cases. So Peter's question is legitimate. When exactly are you planning to bring it?
That's why I'm saying I like that question, because the Solidarity and others are saying, why are you rushing? Why don't you wait for the constitutional review process. In fact, it's AfriForum. They say you are rushing ahead of everything. Wait for the constitutional review process of Parliament. And precisely for the reasons, Karima, you are stating, we say, firstly, there's a very strong legal argument by legal experts. One of them I respect a great deal, former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgamu Seneke, that we need to test with, simultaneously with those who are arguing the Constitution needs to be amended. We need to test whether the argument that actually the Constitution allows it just has not been done is true or not. So we are proceeding. We have identified some land parcels. I can't say to you where are they, that are lying fallow, that could be illegally invaded at any other time. We are going to proceed to test these cases before the... I've also assembled a team of lawyers who understand the question of land very, very well, including constitutionalism.
But Premier, you are dodging the question. You're dodging the question of when, because you've had 23 years. When exactly? Are you going to do it next month, in 2 months' time? When exactly are you going to do it?
Well, Karima, all I can say to you is that we are proceeding. We are going ahead. I don't want to say on this day of this month. There are hearings currently underway. Those hearings are also coming to Gauteng on the one hand. The legal team that I am working with on how we take a matter like that to the Constitutional Court will help and say to us that we have done all the necessary things, but it is very soon.
The point simply is that land expropriation without compensation is potentially a catastrophe for this country. If you handle it well, it may not be a catastrophe. And all I'm interested to know is you've put your hand up as a Premier to say, we'll do it. We're going to give it, we're going to try and find a way to see whether the Constitution works for us. And as Karima says, we just want to know whether we're talking about next week or next year or maybe...
I want to say that very soon, not next year.
All right. Premier, let's move on. I mean, you've indicated that there's urgency, and I'm sure South Africans will be holding you to account to this.
We are very determined.
This is going to be an election issue.
We are very determined to get that tested very soon.
Yeah, one of the things that concern me is how are you going to deal with giving people who are in informal settlements a stake in land ownership? Gauteng is not a rural province. Over 60% of South Africa's population are in fact in urban areas. Many people think when we talk about land, we're talking about agricultural land. We've already seen Herman Mashaba take over buildings, privately owned buildings. No one is making a fuss about it. And of course putting it to use. So why is the ANC so afraid? Why are you so awkward about this matter? Why don't you just move?
Well, Karima, if you're going to bring something to a constitutional court. By the way, Bruce, it is us in Gauteng who went to the ANC workshop that you are referring to, Karima, and said we are ready to go and test the matter. But you've got to put to appear before a process of the Constitutional Court. You've got to put your case very, very strong. That's the only reason I can't give you a date.
Absolutely.
But we are ready. It is us. I wasn't put under pressure to say we are going to do it now. We are ready. But the legal team that has to deal with this matter, like any other case of going to court, especially a constitutional court, you've got to prepare. I only announced in May. I only announced in May that we are going to do rapid land release, and then we put a team. That team 2 weeks ago put a report to our cabinet. 2 weeks ago, after consulting with all municipalities, we now know what land parcels, just 2 weeks ago, and now we are preparing the legal side of things.
Okay, gentlemen.
So it's not as if it has been a long process.
I want you to quickly put on your hat as Provincial Chair of the African National Congress.
Thank you.
You've just come from some of your regional conferences. Confirm for us, are you making yourself available to stand as chairperson of the province in the forthcoming provincial elections?
Well, let me say that we are now at a point where I can say that I will make myself available, because this has to go through. You've got to wait for all the branches of the ANC to do the nominations. They have done that. They've completed that. That's why the regions are meeting. And I'm saying to you, I will certainly make myself available. And I'm also very glad that we have had 3 regional conferences. The last 2 of them have either concluded since I came here, or they are just concluding. The third one will conclude overnight.
How do you rate
There was
your chances?
no violence. There was no violence, no flying chairs, but very robust discussions amongst ANC members, particularly about how do we get the ANC back in full force in Gauteng after 2019 elections.
As a final question, Premier,
to serve the people of our province.
How do you rate your chances? Do you think you're going to beat Sputla to it? Is he going to contest you?
Well, there are questions I really can't answer with all modesty. All I can say is that the conference will elect a leadership. And let me say, Karima, I'm very optimistic that we're going to have a very dynamic team that gets elected by the ANC at this conference. And that team will inspire a lot of confidence amongst the people of Gauteng. The ANC is sorting its house in order. We are rebuilding, we are reorganizing. And we are putting the critical issues of inclusion, socio-economic transformation, but also ethical governance at the heart of the business of the ANC.
All right, Premier, thank you so very much. Always a pleasure, of course. Thank you to Premier David Makhura. Always wonderful to engage with him. And, of course, we will be keeping a close tab on that conference coming up. Up next, we look ahead. We'll have a panel of journalists who will prepare us for what will dominate news headlines in the week ahead.